Hey guys, welcome to my next video tutorial on home recording. In this video, we're going to talk about GarageBand, which is an awesome program to help people get started in the world of home recording. It's usually a free program that comes with any MacBook or iMac computer. You even have mobile versions of it on iPads and on your iPhone. So it's a really cool, versatile program that helps people kind of get started in this world of recording. I'm actually recording the audio to this video in the next version of GarageBand, which is called Logic. Now that's a more expensive program. It is not free by any means, but it's amazing, and that's kind of the next step that you would graduate into after learning the basics on GarageBand if you wanted to. But to be honest, you could get away with a lot of professional or semi-professional recordings simply using GarageBand if you really wanted to or if you had to. So we're going to talk about GarageBand and how to get started. So basically, you're going to want to select, the application down here, which I have, and you're going to want to select a new project and empty project. Now, in this first window that pops up, you're going to select what kind of track you want to record. So track is just referring to the type of recording you're making. And you have different options that GarageBand provides you with. So you can record a software instrument, which is basically like a keyboard or a synthesizer or an electronic sound that is built into the computer itself. And believe it or not, GarageBand comes with quite a few of these. So you might want to start on that if you really just want to explore the sounds that GarageBand has to offer. And that's a really cool way to start. But today we're actually going to start with an audio track. To record like your vocals or an acoustic guitar or something live, something in your room right now, using a microphone. So that's the one we're going to use, but I do want to talk about the other options like this guitar option here. This basically means that you can record an electric guitar that you would plug directly into your interface like we discussed in a previous video, and it would allow you to play your guitar using simulated amplifiers. So if you're a guitar enthusiast or someone that wants to learn and record your own guitar, this is a really cool option for you because you actually don't need an amplifier. You can record your guitar straight through GarageBand, and there's a lot of different simulations that you can use to make your guitar sound exactly like you want. Is it a perfect guitar sound? I'll let you be the judge. I personally would rather record a live amp, but I started out using these simulations, and that's what got me into the world of guitar, and I think it's a great way to start. The next thing is really cool. It's probably one of my favorite track types that GarageBand offers, and that is the drummer track. So this is a simulation that acts as a professional drummer that plays along with you and your recordings. It's really cool. You can adjust all these different parameters to make the drum sound exactly as you want, and it actually sounds relatively real. Not like a cheap, chintzy electronic drum that's very unnatural sounding. These drum kits have velocity changes and stylistic changes that really make the drums come to life, even though they're technically not coming from a live drummer. So I highly recommend that you explore that if you're somebody that's wanting to create like a full sounding song complete with drums. That's a really awesome addition to such an inexpensive program. But for now, like I said before, we're going to start with just a microphone recording. So you're going to select that. Now down here in this input box, this is important because this controls which input you're using from your interface. So basically you're telling the computer which input you're wanting to record. Right now, my microphone is plugged into the first input on my Focusrite interface, like we discussed in a previous video. So that's why it's selected. But if I wanted to select the second channel, I could, or I could even select both channels simultaneously if for some reason I was recording something with two different microphones at the same time. That's a really cool recording technique that we won't get into today, but that is an option with GarageBand. So selecting input 1 is what I need to do. But the next thing that you need to know is your input and output source. You might not know what those terms mean, but GarageBand makes it very clear by saying things like, my instrument is connected with what? Basically, it's asking how you're connecting an instrument to the computer. I'm connecting, well, the instrument in this case is my voice, and it's being recorded with a microphone that's plugged into my Scarlett 2i2 interface. So that's why it's selected. But if I wanted to, I could select that arrow, and then this window pops up, and literally it tells you what I said earlier, output and input. These are different device selectors, and you can actually select your built-in microphone to your computer. Some computers have those. In fact, I'd say most do today. And you can actually use your built-in microphone. I don't recommend it because it's really not meant to record music or high quality audio, but you could do that. So that is an option for you. I'm selecting the interface though. Likewise, if you wanted the Scarlett or your interface to be the source at which you hear music or volume or any kind of sound coming out, that's what you'd want to select. Like for example, I've got my headphones plugged into my interface, and so that's why I have the Scarlett selected, because I want to hear what I'm recording through these headphones. But I could select the built-in output to the computer, which would basically send the volume to either my computer's speakers or the headphone jack on my computer. So that is an option, but if you're doing what I'm saying and what I'm doing and you have an interface, then you want to select the interface and make sure that is selected. A lot of times GarageBand will do that automatically if your interface is connected before you ever open a program, but sometimes it goofs up and won't do that, and you'll need to double check that from time to time. But that is all correct. The only other thing on this window that you might want to look at is this box here that says, I want to hear my instrument as I play and record. That is talking about monitoring your recording as you're recording. We'll get into that here in a second, so I'm going to leave that box unchecked so I can show you that later on. So let's create the track. Now, I'm only going to show you two things initially in this video because I don't want it to be too long and you can get into a lot of stuff, but I just want to give you the basics just to start off recording your first track. So what you want to do is you want to deselect these different buttons, unselect, deselect, whatever. And now you have a open window, nothing cluttered, everything's available to you. And the one thing I want to draw your attention to here first, actually there's two things. The first thing is this square here where you see the green volume level moving up and down. This is your track. So you've created a track for your microphone to record on, and this is that track. The only other thing I wanted to show you right now is this bluish window right here. This is your project window, and it tells you some really important things and gives you some really important controls to start off with. So let's talk about this project window. These icons here, the MAJ, sorry, and 4/4 and 120, these are parameters for your project's key signature, your project's time signature, and your project's tempo. So these are very important because you want these parameters to line up with whatever song, if you're creating a song, this is what you're going to want to control. So if your song is in the key of C major, you want that selected. If not, you can select a different key, either in the major or minor keys, but we're going to leave it at C major for now. The next thing is the time signature, and again, you can control this. If you want some crazy 12/8 time signatures or custom signature, you can do that. That's a really cool feature that GarageBand added compared to the earlier ones that didn't allow that. But for right now, we're just going to stick with the good old 4/4 time signature. And as far as your tempo goes, obviously you want to write down whatever tempo your song should be at. If you're not sure what tempo your song should be and you want to listen to different tempos, you can actually increase or decrease your tempo by simply clicking on the number and then dragging your mouse up and down. We're going to leave it at 120 though, just for now. Cool. So this over here, the bar and beat window, we're not going to worry about that for now, but basically it just tells you how long your project is, and you can control how it tells you. You can give you either the how many measures or how many beats are in your project, or it can also tell you the time. So you can control that. You can change it to just show you the time. I like to leave it at beats and project personally though, because that's the most useful for me. All right, so that's the project window. So now for your recording. In an earlier video, we talked about something called gain staging and the gain knob on your interface. That is a really important thing to understand for this point in your recording. Why? Because have you ever been to like a live event where somebody was speaking into a microphone and their mouth got too close to the microphone and it got really loud and really fuzzy? Well, you want to avoid that in your recordings because that sounds really amateur, that doesn't sound good, and it's a really easy thing to avoid, and yet so many people don't know how to avoid that when they start recording. So what you want to do is you want to place your microphone an appropriate distance away from your face. Like right now, my microphone is about 4 inches away from my face, and I've got the pop filter in between my face and the microphone. So all that is good. My placement is good. Now I want to make sure that the gain knob on my interface is set so that the volume on the screen, you can see the green line moving up and down. You want to make sure this volume stays, this line stays in the green. But if I were to get closer and to talk louder, all of a sudden it gets yellow. That's not necessarily really bad, but you want to try to avoid that yellow line. But if I got really loud, you see how it got into the orange there, and eventually it would get into the red. So you want to avoid the red because if your volume level gets into the red on a track, that means you're clipping. And basically, clipping means your sound is going to be bad. That's all you really need to know. The sound will be bad if it clips, just like whenever that guy speaking in your gym got too close to the microphone at a school pep rally because he didn't know what he was doing and he got really close and it made the sound awful. That's what you want to avoid in your recording. So you want to turn your gain knob either up or down. I'm turning the gain knob down and you can hear how it's getting louder, or you can turn it down and you can hear how the volume is getting quieter. That's where you want to control the volume for your track. You might say, well, look, there's this little volume knob here. Why can't I control it there? Well, it's kind of hard to explain right now, but basically just know that you want to leave this at 0 decibels for now in the recording, and we're going to wait to adjust that when we get into mixing. So for right now, volume should be right around that, just in the peak of your green bar on GarageBand. So the next thing you want to know is how to monitor your recording. We talked earlier about that little box in the first screen that said you want to hear your recording as you record it. Well, this little button here that kind of looks like an upside down Wi-Fi signal, that is the button that controls that. So if I click that, that allows me to hear the recording through my headphones or whatever output you've selected while it's recording. And I caution you to make sure you're only listening to the recording or the track with headphones when this is selected, because otherwise something called feedback will happen and it'll create, well, it might not, but it could potentially create a high-pitched squealing sound that'll just get louder and louder and louder as the microphone picks up the sound coming from your speakers, and then vice versa. So it creates a circle and it just gets out of control. So only use headphones when selecting your monitor on-off switch. Now, the next thing you need to know are these two buttons here. These are buttons that allow you to either mute or solo the track. So we only have one track, so there's no point to solo it. But if you had multiple tracks at the same time with multiple recordings playing at the same time and you only want to listen to one of those at a time, you can either mute all the other tracks by selecting the mute button, or you can solo the one track you want to hear. Basically accomplishes the same thing. So you can also name your track here by double clicking on the title. I'm going to leave mine audio 1. And if you really want to get fancy, you can actually right click on this wave symbol here and you can select what kind of source you're recording. I'm recording vocals through a condenser mic, so I'm just going to select that, but you don't have to. That's just for your own organization. Because as you have multiple tracks in a project, it's really important to be able to identify what your track is at a glance instead of having to try to listen to it and figure out, oh yeah, that was my vocal track. I thought it was the guitar track. So that kind of helps. So really helpful tools. Finally, you've got the pan knob here. just like your gain knob. It's like a simulated knob that you can turn left or right, like a clock. And essentially that controls how your sound is balancing between the left and right headphone or speaker. But for right now, we're just going to leave it dead center so it's coming out of left and right equally. So now we're just going to hit record. I'm going to go ahead and select the metronome and the count in button. This is going to give me a 1, 2, 3, 4 count before the track starts recording. That's really helpful if you're like recording vocals or a guitar and you want to be able to click the record button and then get your hands in position before the recording starts. So I'm not recording guitar, but just out of habit, I like to have that selected. It's up to you if you need it or not. I just recommend it. The next thing you want to do before you start recording an instrument is you want to have this tuner button selected so that you can properly tune your instrument. My instrument right now is my voice, so obviously I can't tune that because I can't hardly sing at all. But if I wanted to, I could sing a G sharp or an A. Yeah, sorry, my voice is awful. I told you. But anyway, that tuner will help you stay in tune and make your recording sound really good. So I'm just going to go ahead and now hit record. I think you can probably figure out what most of these buttons are. You've got record, play, stop, fast forward, rewind. I don't think I've ever really used either of these two. I pretty much only ever use the record button here. I'll show you why. So if you hit record, it gives me the count in. There we go. The metronome's going doot, 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 ba, doot, doot, doot. But it's recording my voice. I could sing here. I could play an instrument. Either way, it's going to give me this waveform recording. And as you can see, none of the peaks and valleys of this waveform are getting too high or too low. That's good. That means I'm not clipping. However, if I got really loud, you can see how the peaks and valleys are now very large. And that's what you want to try to avoid. You want to try to avoid peaking for the reason I described earlier. But for now, that's all we need. And you've recorded your first track. Congratulations. You've taken that first big step into the world of home recording. And that is basically how to start. So well done, guys. I'm looking forward to showing you how to edit some of this stuff and how to record multiple tracks in the next video. But for now, take care.